Today I want to talk about a potentially confusing topic. What happens, what causes this feeling of hunger after you finish eating? Have you ever had that? You finish a pretty big meal, maybe a bowl of pasta or a burrito or some pizza or whatever, and then like half hour later or an hour later, a pretty short amount of time for how big of a meal you had, you're pretty hungry again. And this pattern might repeat like once a week. And it's baffling to you. It is like weird. It's weird and it makes you think that like your body's malfunctioning, or it makes you feel that this whole nutrition thing is this hopelessly confusing. You throw up your arms in the air and what the hell is wrong? Like, it's really weird. I just was working with a client this past week, and I kind of brought this up. They didn't bring it up. I asked them, so have you ever had this feeling? And they vigorously nodded their head. And so when I saw that vigor in their head movement, nodding up and down, I thought, okay, I gotta make a video about this, because I understand. And there's actually a pretty neat solution. It's not the entire solution, but just thinking about it differently can really bring a lot of sense into making sense of this phenomenon, especially if you're feeling baffled by hunger, real hunger after you just eat a big meal. So so basically the problem happens in the preceding days. The problem is in the preceding days. The most common situation that I see is a deadline. You got a project, something due at work, you're working real hard, and you're under stress. And when you're under stress, you just don't eat as much. Some people actually cope with stress by eating, but other people, and maybe this is you, they just stop eating. And that's kind of a natural response. When you're under stress, when you're under pressure, our bodies think that we're under attack, like a saber-toothed tiger is going to attack us, or we're going to get in a fight. So the blood leaves your stomach and goes to your hands and your heart and your brain to help you. It's you think you're under attack, so the blood leaves your stomach, it goes outward, and then without as much blood in your stomach, the stomach doesn't communicate hunger as well. It's not as you're a little out of touch with your hunger. It's not as clear when you're hungry and all that stuff. So if you're under stress for a few days, you might be under eating. So imagine this. For a few days, you're under eating. You're not eating enough. Maybe you skip lunch, you skip a couple meals, you got meetings back to back, you're running around, and this goes on for maybe 3, 4, 5 days. That's a deficit, right? Or maybe you go on a big hike, like 10 miles, and you don't feel hungry afterwards. And then you sleep on it, and the next day you almost kind of forget that you went on a hike. And same with the stress. We forget that for the past few days we exercised really hard, or we were running around, or we weren't eating. We forget about that. We don't think in terms of the past. We only think in terms of now. So you eat this big meal and you're hungry, right? I mean, like starving after you eat the big meal. And you're like, what the F is going on? Like, this always happens. And what happens for a good amount of people is you're not incorporating, you're not seeing the big picture. You're not seeing the big picture of that for the past few days you haven't eaten enough. You've been stressed, you've been overworking, and you haven't rejuvenated your body. And now you're paying the price. Now this is your body playing catch up. The starving feeling right after you eat. It's like a boomerang, right? You can throw a boomerang one way and it's going to go out of your sight You might even forget that you threw the boomerang, pretend this is like a magical boomerang that can go like 10 miles one direction. But then you turn around and you kind of forget about it, but then it comes back and it smacks you in the head a few days later. And you're like, where is this coming from? Well, it's cause and effect. If the body is operating at a caloric deficit, it's gonna smack you right back in the face eventually. So we need to see the cause and effect. That's where a lot of this is coming from. And honestly, that's most of it. Like, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. Now why do we think in terms of 24 hours? Why do we have a harder time not reflecting on the past? Reflecting on the past few days is just something that we're not trained to do. If you go to the supermarket, they give you, on every piece of food or everything has like a label, and the labels say here's how many calories per day, right? They say it's all in per day. They say here's 20% of your sodium intake for the day, and we live in a Western culture that's very logical. We measure time in 24-hour time periods. Today is Tuesday, and so we have all this cultural conditioning that makes us think in terms of a day. If you've ever gone on a weight loss program before, they'll tell you 1,500 calories per day, or maybe it's less, or maybe it's more. It doesn't really matter, but they're telling you per day. And there's this notion that day by day, like, it's only measured in terms of a day. But studies have, but humans aren't like that. Millions of years ago, life was a lot different. We didn't have calendars, we didn't have weekends, we didn't really measure or think about time in this way. We let our nervous systems, our digestive systems, eat more some days, and then eat less the other days. A kind of a extreme example of this is like an anaconda or a reptile, or even like a lion, another mammal. They eat a lot during a feast, and then they don't do shit. Sorry for my language. They don't do much the next few days. They eat a lot, and then they kind of coast on that. So our bodies are the same way. We're going to eat more some days, and we're going to eat less the other days. And studies have tracked children. They've tracked children, and they've given the children no instructions, no guidance, no nothing. And the children, they will naturally eat more some days, and then they'll naturally eat less some other days. And over the course of like a week, their weight is maintained. And for me personally, once I understood this, I myself get stressed out. I myself will eat less some days. And I myself will have days where I am ravenously hungry, or more hungry than normal. I'm over binge eating now. Woot! But when I'm hungry, more hungry than normal, I'm not freaking out about it. I'm actually allowing it. I'm allowing myself to regulate. This is how my body regulates. It's not in a 24-hour time period. It's some days I'll kind of go over, and then I'll know that maybe the next few days I won't eat as much. Or there's a certain real deep-rooted trust that I have within my body, because I understand this eating it's not a sign that I'm weird. It's not a sign that I'm failing or that nutrition has gone wrong. It's just, it's just the boomerang coming around. And so honestly, that sums up this video. If there's more questions you have, let me know. Let me know if you don't understand. Let me know if you understand. Let me know what follow-up questions you have. All right. Peace.